A cold, dark night. A small town where nothing ever happens until it does. A father, so loved by everyone, is savagely killed, taken away from his family by 5 savage men. The killers? Gone, leaving nothing but pain, tears, and unanswered questions. But one person cannot let go. His son. A little boy who lost everything that night. For 10 years, he waited. For 10 years, he planned. And when the time was right, he took his revenge. But how? How did a kid, barely a teenager at the time, track down 5 men and bring them to justice? Or something far worse? The truth behind this case is chilling, and what happened in the end will leave you speechless. Stay with me until the end, because this is a story you won't believe. Let's start from the beginning. Michael Carter was a man respected by everyone in town. A hardworking mechanic, a devoted husband, and most importantly, a loving father to his 8-year-old son, Daniel. He wasn't rich. He wasn't powerful. But what he did have? A good name, a happy home, and a life free of enemies. Or so he thought. What Michael did not know, however, is that somewhere in the shadows, 5 men were already planning his death. These were no ordinary thugs, no street gang, nor dangerous teenagers. They were organized, calculated, and cold-blooded killers. Their names? Ethan Cole, Jack Reapert Hargrove, Marcus Vance, Tony Wells, and Victor Sloan. Each had a record for some serious crime, armed robbery, others for drug trafficking, and others for things much worse. But what bound them? They had a secret, a crime they'd committed years before. A crime Michael Carter had stumbled upon. It was an ordinary evening. A routine fill-up at the gas station. Michael was headed home from work when he saw something he was never meant to see. A delivery truck parked in the darkness. 5 men carrying large packages into the truck. First, Michael hardly noticed it at all. He assumed it could have been that late-night delivery. Then came the glimpse he caught of one of the box's contents inside. Not some kind of edibles or some gadget. Hundreds of thousands in dollars worth. Drugs. Michael made the worst choice in his whole life, as the good man was. He rang the police department. That solitary call sealed Michael's fate forever. Days passed, and Michael thought nothing had come from it. The police never followed up. Life went on. But behind the scenes, those 5 men had found out who tipped the cops off. And now they had one mission: silence him. It was a chilly Friday night when it happened. Michael was closing up his auto shop when a black van pulled up. The door slid open. 5 masked men stepped out. Michael never had a chance to run. They dragged him inside, and a cloth bag was pushed over his head. What came next is unspeakable. A deserted warehouse. Oops. Blood. They didn't just want to kill him. They wanted him to suffer. Michael begged for his life, pleading that his wife and son could come and visit just one last time. But the leader, Ethan Cole, lighted a cigarette, looked him dead in the eye, and pulled the trigger. Just like that, Michael Carter was gone. His body? Thrown out like garbage on the side of the road. No witnesses. No evidence. Just a family left shattered. The next morning, 8-year-old Daniel Carter woke up to a nightmare. Police at the door. A mother, sobbing uncontrollably. His father, the man who tucked him in every night, the man who promised to always be there, was never coming home again. The investigation? It went cold. No arrests. No leads. The 5 men walked free. But they made one mistake. They left a boy behind. A boy who, one day, would come for them all. The years passed, but the pain never did. Daniel Carter wasn't just a boy who lost his father. He was a boy shaped by the loss. Grief turned to confusion. Confusion turned to anger. And anger turned into something much darker. By the time Daniel was 13, he had memorized every police report, every news article, every rumor about that night. He knew the system had failed him. The cops weren't coming. The courts weren't going to give him justice. That left only one option: revenge. Daniel started small. He trained. He hit the gym every day after school. He learned how to fight. He studied every case of vigilante justice he could find, every story of criminals who slipped through the cracks but still got what was coming to them. And then, at 18, he disappeared. No one knew where he went. Not his mother, not his teachers, not his friends. But Daniel wasn't lost. He was hunting. He had spent 2 years in search of breadcrumbs for those 5 men that took his father away. Most people would give up. Most people would go on with life. But not Daniel. He found them one by one. And he was ready to collect. First went Marcus Vance, a man that thought he has escaped his past. Daniel found him at a bar living under an alias. He wasn't going to strike that night. No, Daniel was more patient. Followed Marcus back home. Followed his every move. Then, when he felt the moment was right, he made his appearance known. There was a knock at the door. A figure in a mask waiting outside. Marcus never got a chance to scream. And just like that, one of the 5 were gone. The second was Tony Wells, a man who had grown comfortable, thinking the past was buried. Daniel made sure to remind him that it wasn't. One by one they all fell, until only one remained. Ethan Cole, the man who had pulled the trigger, the man who had made it personal. Daniel didn't just want him dead. He wanted him to suffer. And he made sure that's exactly what happened. By the time the police came, it was too late. The 5 men who had evaded justice a long time before were nowhere to be found. And Daniel? He was also gone. They say he escaped into the darkness, his purpose fulfilled. Some say he remains out there waiting for his prey. But that is not really important. The fact is justice was finally served. And the boy, once a victim? He was something much worse.